Aviation is back.
In my last two videos, I took you with me on the cruise ship Liberty of the Seas from Port Everglades and Fort Lauderdale to 2 islands in the Bahamas. I stayed situationally aware during my cruise, noting procedures that we followed, and I took you around with me as I walked around the beautiful ship. In this video, I pick up right where I left off. I'll take you into the Fort Lauderdale-Hollywood International Airport and show you around before I board a JetBlue A320 for an evening departure from FLL. Let's get started. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I've got a flight out of the Fort Lauderdale-Hollywood International Airport to Jacksonville, and you're coming along with me. Before I entered the terminal that JetBlue operates out of, I had my ride drop me off between Terminal 2 and Terminal 4 because I knew that there's a nice gap between the buildings, and with easy access on the sidewalk next to the road, I could do some plane spotting and have a great view of runway 10 left to 8 right. But my flight will be leaving from Terminal 3, so I walked west towards this terminal, which is at the western end of a U-shaped terminal complex. There are a total of 4 terminals here at the Fort Lauderdale-Hollywood International Airport. Terminal 3 houses several carriers, but I'll be on JetBlue today. The entrance to the terminal leads to the check-in area where passengers can check in, get boarding passes, and drop off their bags. Nowadays, everything is automated, and it's possible to complete most of this process with very little human interaction. I don't have a bag to check, so I'm headed right to TSA. Okay, I've completed TSA, so why not take a tour of the terminal? I've got some time on my hands, as usual. Well, I'm in luck because even though I entered the airside via Terminal 3, there's a walkway that leads to Terminal 4 after security, so I'm following the signs toward the G gates, which are in Terminal 4. A long hallway with art and a flight information display system leads to my first destination on my journey, Terminal 4. Here's a view outside. Spirit Airlines considers Fort Lauderdale a focus city, and you'll see plenty of bright yellow Airbus aircraft on the ramp here. I love the yellow, but I'm especially impressed by the interior of Terminal 4. This is a modern, clean, and bright, and visually pleasing space. The food and shopping spaces draw you in, but of course I'm always looking for windows so I can see some beautiful actions like this beautiful Spirit A319 on the ramp about to terminate a flight. That was followed by a close-up look at a brand new pink Azul A330-900. This Airbus joins a few smaller aircraft in the Azul fleet that are also painted pink. I'm fascinated by the colors here, but it's time to walk over to the F gates back in Terminal 3, the terminal I entered earlier. My flight will be departing from the F gates later tonight. The F gates are not as flashy as the gates in Terminal 4. With a low ceiling and straight path to walk, it was pretty unremarkable, but at least I'm getting exercise in because I'll be back here in a bit. I've got one more concourse to check out in this terminal, the E concourse, which is located in the northwestern part of the terminal area. Again, like the F concourse, it was unremarkable with a lack of fancy storefronts and amenities, so I made sure that I made my way to a window. Recognize that aircraft? That's the A320 that I took from Jacksonville to Fort Lauderdale. If you're looking for a detailed video about what JetBlue is like today, check out my video on that exact aircraft from March 12th, 2023. In the meantime, I'm going to walk down the concourse a bit further because I want to see some more airplanes. Here's a Southwest 737 taking off on runway 10 left. After that, I checked out the FID screen, or Flight Information Display System, to confirm my gate. Tonight I'll be flying on JetBlue Flight 820 to Jacksonville, and I'll be leaving from gate Foxtrot 9, but something doesn't look right here. My scheduled departure time is 6:40 p.m., but the column indicating the proposed departure time is showing 7:35 p.m. That's almost an hour late, but the remarks column shows a 6:40 p.m. departure. So according to what I see here, the flight is scheduled for 7:35, but I'll leave at 6:40. I've never heard of a flight leaving almost an hour early, nor have I seen the remarks column show the scheduled time. Could it be that the columns were swapped? This doesn't make much sense. Well, I certainly was concerned that my flight was going to be delayed, but I asked a JetBlue customer service agent what was going on with that flight, and she told me that the county updates the FID system, and they just made a mistake. The flight's on time. Well, at least I know I'll be on the runway as scheduled. And it's this A320 named Betty Blue that will get me out of FLL tonight. The sun is about to set in Fort Lauderdale as I gaze out the window over another JetBlue A320. That's the guitar-shaped Hard Rock Hotel in the distance. Flights at the gates are preparing for their evening departures, like this 737 bound for Canada. I'm at Gate 9 and waiting for the boarding announcement. Let's head on over to JAX from FLL. I could feel the Florida heat in the jet bridge. I'm boarding one of JetBlue's older planes. It was delivered directly to JetBlue in late 2002 and is only flown for this carrier. The plane's name is Betty Blue, a play on Betty Boop, a cartoon character that debuted in the 1930s. I love the unique names JetBlue gives their aircraft, often playing around with the word blue. Today, my seat is in the rear of the aircraft on the right side of the plane. I chose a seat in the rear of the plane because if the aircraft is not sold out, middle seats in the rear often remain empty, and that's exactly what happened on this flight. My seat, 5 rows from the rear, had 2 windows, which is great because A320 windows are small. Legroom was sufficient, and the cabin was pleasant looking and well lit. The seat pocket in front of me included a drink holder and a standard seat pocket for the safety card and bag. The tray was a typical tray for an A320. The IFE, or in-flight entertainment screen, had vastly different options from the A320 that took me here. More on that soon. I'm impressed with the interior of this aircraft. I like it. I chose a seat on the right side of the aircraft because I want to get a nice view of the Florida coast as we head north. Here's the view out the window. After the climb out, we'll be flying northbound over the land, so the coast of the Atlantic Ocean should be on this side of the plane. There goes another Azul aircraft, this time painted in standard Azul colors. Now back to the IFE. Scrolling through the channels, I came across this, and it literally blew my mind. ATC in flight is what my channel is all about, and I had no idea I'd come across this. This, combined with the view outside, is sheer perfection. Well, it's time to push back onto the Terminal 3 ramp, so I plugged in my headset to listen to ground control. I didn't hear anything, but I figured that I'd wait till we make our request for taxi instructions to the runway. For now, we're just pushing back on the ramp via tug, and 2 wing walkers on both sides of the airplane ensure that we don't hit anything. We're not on an active taxiway just yet. I can't wait for the flight attendants to dim the cabin lights. The worst part about night flights is that when the cabin lights are on, it's really hard to see out the window, but the lights need to be on so passengers can see the flight attendants during the safety demo. Okay, the safety demo is over. Here comes the dimming of the lights, a welcome action for any aviation enthusiast. I can finally see outside with no reflections on the window. There was a nice blue light on the ceiling of the cabin, but that did not affect the window visibility. The tug has been removed and we can start our taxi under the control of ground control. I tried to listen to ATC via the IFE, but I didn't hear anything, and I'd figured that we'd have to wait until we're on the tower frequency or departure control frequency. In the meantime, we worked our way to runway 10 right. Runway 10 right is on the south side of the airport, and the plan is to take taxiways that head west to get to the beginning of the runway, where we'll make a U-turn onto the runway and take off to the east. We're under the guidance of the Fort Lauderdale ground controller, who ensures that our A320 is safely separated from other flights and is following a standard path to the departure runway. There are 2 parallel runways at this airport, and each runway is being used as both an arrival and departure runway this evening. Our departure runway, runway 10 right, is accepting arrivals and departures, so the controller needs to ensure that the 2 do not conflict on the ground. Because of the way the airport is set up, the terminal area is closer to the end of the runway, therefore arriving flights can taxi to the terminal quickly after landing. This reduces conflict with departing flights. The real conflict occurs on the ramp and the taxiways near the terminal itself. This part of the airport is very well laid out to separate departures from arrivals on the ground. We should have a clear path all the way to the runway, and the only delays we may encounter will likely have to do with spacing between arrivals and departures on the runway itself. Runway 10 right is 8,000 feet long and made of concrete, and it's actually a rather new runway. It was constructed in 2014. It replaces an older runway. Both the runway and its adjoining taxiway have a road that goes underneath them on the runway's east side. The road is US 1, which runs from Key West in Florida to Fort Kent in Maine. Rather than move the path of the roadway, part of the runway was built over it so that the road can stay in place. The road serves as a way for passengers to enter and leave the airport. Our flight will actually be airborne by the time we reach this runway bridge, but after rotation we'll get a glimpse of vehicles on the road. When you've got such a major airport in a dense urban area, these are the things that the planners just have to come up with to make the most out of limited space. This is a busy airport with over 700 daily flights departing to over 133 destinations both in the USA and internationally. We're on one of the shorter routes out of Fort Lauderdale, and we're going to remain within the state of Florida this evening. There are other airports in the area that serve South Florida, such as Miami International Airport and West Palm Beach, and sprinkled between them are even more general aviation airports without airline service. For the first time since pulling out of the ramp, we have come to a complete stop. We are actually at the beginning of the runway, and we're waiting for aircraft to land on the runway. Once the aircraft have landed and are clear of the runway, the tower controller will issue us takeoff clearance. Yes, I am struggling to listen to air traffic control via the in-flight entertainment system, but it's just not happening. In one moment, we'll start moving again, we'll turn the corner, and then we'll take off. Let's listen into the sound of the engines of this Airbus A320. Two International Aero engines are powering this A320 skyward. And I've given up on listening to ATC as we climb east and approach the Atlantic Ocean. It's just not going to happen. But I do know that we're flying the Frisbee 1 departure procedure as we climb under the control of Miami Departure Control, the local radar facility for South Florida airports. This departure procedure will take us out over the water, which produces less noise pollution below. Even though part of the climb is over land, it's over an uninhabited area. After climbing over the water, we'll start a left turn to the north, then west to proceed inland. And while over the land, we'll turn right and head north all the way up to Jacksonville. The Frisbee 1 departure uses waypoints in the sky that the pilots use to follow and make turns. Here's the actual description of it. Climb on heading 096 to intercept course 065 to Elbow, then on track 026 to cross Room at or above 4,000, then on track 347 to Yolo, then on track 298 to Lyric, then on track 308 to Alonzo. When I read this for the first time, I got a kick out of those names, and I'll explain why. The initial heading is virtually runway heading until we need to turn to the left to a 65-degree heading to Elbow. Then we fly a 26-degree heading to Room. Elbow and Room. That's an interesting combination of names for these waypoints. Why Elbow Room? Well, I actually figured this one out right away. I've been to Fort Lauderdale many times, and I know that there's a bar on the beach called Elbow Room, and these two fixes reference that. After Room, which we need to cross at or above 4,000 feet, we fly heading 347, which is a turn inland to Yolo. There happens to be a restaurant a bit further inland from the beach called Yolo. After this, we fly 298 degrees to Lyric. I'm not sure what that one is a reference to. Then it's a heading of 308 degrees to Alonzo. Again, I'm not sure what that refers to, but if you know, let me know in the comments section below. I love the local flavor being added to the departure path. Knowing these things can turn a simple departure like this into something fascinating, and that's what this channel aims to do. While nearly every passenger was sleeping or on their phones or looking at the TV, I made the most of my experience by researching the departure path and sharing it with you. And I genuinely believe that knowing this made my flight more enjoyable. Do you subscribe to the same thought process as I do? If not, well, then consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't done so already, so you don't miss out on detailed explanations like this on my future flights. We're now back over the land, and we're looking at the area north of Fort Lauderdale. In a moment, we're going to start a right-hand turn on course towards Jacksonville. This is the part of the flight that I do not like. The lights are coming back on because the flight attendants need to perform some service. This is going to severely hamper my view out the window. I'm not happy. Well, at least there's a map in front of me so I can at least see where I am. At this point, the flight attendants came by with snacks and I had some nuts. Notice how on the in-flight entertainment screen I still have the air traffic control window up. I've given up hope, but I've sort of not given up hope. I really want to hear air traffic control, but it's not going to happen on this flight. I tried playing with the control on the side of my seat and it still didn't work. By this point, we're now passing by the Orlando area, and you can see many lights below of the large city. After Orlando, we pass by the Daytona Beach area. If you look carefully, you can make out the Daytona International Motor Speedway as well as the Daytona Beach International Airport right next to it. I had to zoom in a bit, so it was hard to see. We're now on the POGI arrival procedure for this short interstate flight to Jacksonville. This procedure has us arriving from the south over the land the entire way. As we get closer to the city, we'll fly to the west of Jacksonville, then make a right turn to land on runway 29er. We're descending under the control of the Jacksonville Air Route Traffic Control Center, then Jacksonville Approach Control, and then the Jacksonville Control Tower. Let's complete this short JetBlue route.
JetBlue welcomes you to Jacksonville, Florida. The local time is approximately 7:38 p.m. For your safety, please keep your seatbelt securely fastened until the captain turns off the seatbelt sign and keep the aisles clear while carrying items. At this moment, we actually do a final check around your seat and seat bag pockets for any personal items you do not wish to leave behind. If you receive the pink receipt that says claim at gate, you can pick up your items outside of the front boarding door. If you need any help or assistance getting on the aircraft, please feel free to remain seated after we wrap up the gate so we can better assist you. For more information on connecting flights and baggage, please view the airport monitors within the terminal and download our free mobile JetBlue app. We'll be arriving at gate Alpha 4. From all of us here at JetBlue, we thank you for flying with us this evening. We hope to see you again soon on a future flight. From those of you from the Jacksonville area, we'd like to be the first to say welcome home. If you're connecting, visiting, or still traveling, travel safe to your destinations may take you. Welcome to Jacksonville.
I'd like to thank you for joining me on this short flight on JetBlue on an A320 from Fort Lauderdale to Jacksonville. Remember that if you're not subscribed to my channel provides a very unique look at aviation, so you might be missing out if you're not a subscriber. So I invite you to click on the subscribe button below. Thanks everybody, and I'll see you very soon in another video.